Hi crew.
Hi crew, welcome back to another episode. Today we are out on the beautiful Ningaloo, and we started filming this episode a couple of years ago, and we hoped it was an episode that we would never have to film, but sadly we're going to be using it today. So here you are, come along, and this is us 2 years ago.
Alright, welcome back to potentially another episode. It's currently
28th of August.
28th of August.
2023.
Almost the end of winter. And it's definitely feeling like the end of winter. I feel like 2 weeks ago we were wearing beanies and trackies and it's very quickly feeling much warmer. Would you agree?
I do. The big thing I have noticed, or we have noticed, is the water temperature. So the water temperature's gone up from 21 to 24 degrees in the last week.
Yeah. So these weather systems are basically fluctuations from normal, and they're to do with the trade winds at the equator. So La Nina generally means cooler, wetter weather. So I remember even when I moved to Exmouth, everyone told me it never rains here. And then for the first 2 years that I was here, I feel like it rained all the time. So El Nino, which is what we're looking to be entering now, is generally warmer, drier weather, so droughts, bushfires, that sort of thing.
So the trend is showing exactly what El Nino would say is happening: warmer, drier conditions.
And there's certain parameters as well that determine whether we are or aren't in that sort of weather pattern, because there is a normal baseline as well. So El Nino and La Nina are variations from normal, but it's looking like we're entering El Nino, and if we do, then that normally happens around spring, which is about to be where we're at.
Okay, now on top of that, climate scientists are saying that El Nino events will cause more global coral bleaching events. In that case, that would mean that we would expect to start to see more coral bleaching events, potentially at Ningaloo, but around the world. And so the interesting thing here is that scientists predict currently that by 2042, which is less than 20 years away, we're going to be experiencing a couple of bleaching events per decade. And by 2049, Ningaloo will be bleaching every year. That's on the current forecast if nothing changes, if everything stays the way we're travelling. So we've decided that we want to document what's going on here at Ningaloo, and we're going to bring you guys along for the ride. So as we said, 28th of August 2023, the current state of affairs at Ningaloo is that we are seeing a reduction in coral coverage, but we're not seeing these wide-scale bleaching events yet.
Generally, the reef here is considered to be one of the healthiest reef systems in the world. So right now, as we do begin to enter that time, we basically just want to document whatever happens or doesn't happen. Hopefully, this video is nothing and nothing at all happens and everything stays the same. But yeah, over the summertime, as it gets warmer and as we potentially enter El Nino, we want to document what happens on Ningaloo.
So one of the things we will do is we've already taken and we will continue to take drone shots of the areas that we go regularly. We'll get in the water, take some in-water stuff.
Yeah, so
I will be a very sad human if and when Ningaloo starts to experience these large-scale bleaching events.
yeah.
And we're here in summer. There's a lot of people that leave in summer because it gets so hot. But yeah, like I said, the temperature ranges here from about 21 to 28 degrees. And if it gets too warm outside of that sort of bracket, we'll start to see some sick coral. And El Nino is meant to be bringing warmer water. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens and we'll take you along with us.
So every day on the tour we explain to people what coral is, and coral is made up of 3 parts. So it's got we say a rock part, an animal part, and a plant part.
The animal part of the coral is a tiny member of the Cnidarian family, also including jellyfish and sea anemones. This creature is called a polyp and acts as the architects of the reef, using calcium carbonate to build the incredible rock-like formations that create Ningaloo. The polyps have formed a partnership with a microscopic algae called zooxanthellae, which lives inside the tissue of the coral. By photosynthesizing, the algae provides the coral with food in return for its home. It also gives the coral some of its colour, tinting the tissue with an earthy brown hue. Together, these 3 components make up the coral that allows Ningaloo to thrive. Despite only covering about 1% of the sea floor, coral reefs like this one support a quarter of all life in the ocean, making them a vital resource in the underwater world. Coral bleaching is a stress response in the coral, and it usually happens because of water temperature. So all coral reefs around the world have a nice comfy temperature range that they feel safe and happy in, and that's different for every reef system. So Ningaloo is different to the Great Barrier Reef, and even just in Exmouth, the coral on our west coast where we are right now is very different to the coral in the Exmouth Gulf because the temperature range in there is much wider. So when the water leaves that comfy temperature range, and it doesn't have to be by very much, 1 or 2 degrees is enough, the coral will start to get stressed and it gets sick. And when the coral gets sick, it does something a little bit like what our bodies do when we get sick. So if we get sick, our bodies will try and fight off whatever it is that's causing that sickness. So the coral does this same thing, but what it fights off is that little zooxanthellae, the little algae that was living inside it. So it expels all of that zooxanthellae from its body, and then all we see left behind is the bright white calcium carbonate structure, which is why it's called coral bleaching, obviously because the coral appears white. So once that's happened, this means that the coral is sick, but it's not yet dead. So it can survive in that state for about a week or so. And if in that time the water temperature cools back down or whatever was stressing the coral goes away, then the coral can reabsorb that algae, the zooxanthellae, from the water, and with its food source back, it can recover. But if the water temperature stays too warm or too cold, then the coral will stay stressed, it won't reabsorb that algae, and without that algae producing those sugars to feed the coral, it will starve and it'll die. When the coral dies, you start seeing seaweed and algae and other things growing over the top of it, and it starts to look a bit furry, and once that happens, that particular bit of coral isn't coming back. So at the moment, when we look at coral reefs worldwide, scientists estimate that just in the last 30 years, we've lost 50% of the coral coverage on Earth, which is pretty wild.
It's crazy.
In September 2024, we began observing sea surface temperatures far higher than average for that time, a trend that has persisted. This has since been classified as a marine heatwave in northwestern Australia, with water temperatures reaching up to 5 degrees above average. This has resulted in a significant fish kill near Karratha and extensive coral bleaching at Ningaloo, where coral gardens along the entire length of the reef have turned ghostly white or are fluorescing. Marine heat waves like this are often linked to weather patterns like El Nino and La Nina. While complicated, generally El Nino brings warmer ocean conditions, while La Nina tends to cool things down. However, in Western Australia, a La Nina phase can trigger a twist. Tropical low-pressure systems and weak southerly winds allow the Lewin current to strengthen and surge further south. This is a significant pattern, enough to have been named the Ningaloo-Nino phenomenon. As the climate and therefore the ocean warms rapidly, these events are becoming more detrimental. A similar event in 2011 resulted in severe bleaching at the southern end of Ningaloo and major ecological impacts further down the coast, seeing over a 30% loss of seagrass meadows in Shark Bay and the collapse of several fisheries. This was declared the worst marine heatwave in the history of Western Australia. Researchers at the time estimated that heatwaves with a similar intensity were a rare event, likely to occur every 80 years with the current emissions at the time. Now, less than 15 years later, we are experiencing one with potential to have even more profound effects. With the end of our summer heat still months away, the full extent of the damage is yet to be realised. We watch with heavy yet hopeful hearts as parts of our home struggle, while other areas reveal the reef's remarkable resilience. For now, we continue to document, learn, educate, and share our observations, trusting that the enduring spirit of this precious ecosystem and the profound sorrow of our losses will kindle a lasting commitment to protect our natural world. Pretty nice conditions today. Little bit of wind around, but the water's finally cleared up a little bit. It's been super green since the cyclone that we had a few weeks ago. It got nice like a couple of days after, which you guys would have seen in our last episode, maybe the one before. But then since then it's just been so green. So yeah, it's finally cleared up a little bit. So yeah, we haven't actually been out on the sea panda in weeks because I went away for Christmas and then Craig just went away for a couple of weeks. That would have been the last episode actually, Craig's little trip away. So yeah, we're finally back together here and finally back out on the sea panda, which is very exciting. So yeah, hopefully this little breeze will drop out a little bit, but it's nothing anyway. But yeah, after we've been for a bit of a swim here, we are gonna head out to the back of the reef, see if anything's out there. It's almost the beginning of whale shark season, so there could be some whale sharks around. But yeah, we want to go and have a look at the coral out there and see if anything is around.
Alright crew, we've just come out the back through the passage there, and it's actually quite nice out here, but there's lots of bird life over there that we're going to go and check out.
Wow, look at all the birds. Alright, we've just come to a little spot on the outer reef here, so we're going to jump in for a bit of a swim and see how the deeper coral is holding up. Already noticed a few bleached corals on the way here in the shallower spots, so yeah, it's a little bit choppy out here, but that's alright. Just going to jump in here, have a bit of a look, see how it's going. unfortunately, that was worse than I thought.
Yeah, we've just come out to some deeper water. We're at the back of the reef here now, and you can see the waves breaking just off to the right there. But even down at 8-9 meters, there's bleaching down there too.
It literally looks like it's snowed on the reef.
Yeah. It's not good. And the other thing is it's only February. Like it's mid-February now. And typically the water doesn't start to cool until sort of April or May.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's confronting. And we really won't know the full extent of the damage until the end of summer. Will we?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some fluorescing corals there that, given the right conditions, could come back. There are some that are already dead, that you can see have already got the brown slime growing over them. There are many in different stages of stress. Some that don't even look stressed at all. There are some that are just carrying on like business as usual.
This diversity is what helps to keep the reef going. If everything was the same, then obviously one event like this would kill everything. So those corals that do survive are obviously more resilient, and those will be the ones to go on and reproduce. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the coral spawn, which is supposed to happen in a couple weeks' time. Sorry, we're not really bringing the energy today, crew. It's just pretty devastating to see. Like over the last few weeks, I saw the very first little bits of coral turning white on tour, and then now we've got entire bommies that are already dead. So it's pretty crazy that in 3 weeks, this, you know, especially the area that we showed maybe first, or I don't know, but the area that we do our tours, like we spend every day driving around that area and showing it to other people. Oh no.
We've been to several sites today, and I reckon more than 50% of the coral structures that you look at are either bleached, fluorescing, or dead already. And I mean, we know these snorkel sites, and we know these spots intimately. And we've been talking about this coming for years on our tours and trying to educate people.
And even to us who know it's happening and try and educate everybody else about it, it still seems like something that's in the distant future. Like it doesn't seem like
it's here.
It's here. So to see it is like pretty crazy.
It's here. And you also feel so helpless. Like there is nothing we can do about it. You can't control the water temperature. You can't change. I mean, there are people that still deny climate change.
Yeah, I mean, we've had like every comment that you could imagine thrown at us on tour from people that don't believe in it or don't think it's happening. And honestly, it's not some myth to believe in or not believe in. Like, it's a scientific fact. And if you don't believe in it, you've just got your head stuck in the sand. Like, it is a clearly documented thing that is happening. So...
And it's happening here now. I mean, it's been happening on other reefs around the world for years. It's happened in small scales here. This is massive. Like, this is... I don't know how far south this extends. I mean, the reef is 270 k's long. I don't know what Coral Bay is like. I don't know how far south the marine heatwave went, but they've got mahi-mahi turning up in Esperance. So...
I mean, we started filming this video 2 years ago, kind of expecting this to happen, and, you know, the water stayed around 29-ish for a few weeks at a time the last couple years, and we had little bits of bleaching, but nothing like this. We were just heading to check out another spot and we just found a leopard shark swimming on the surface. So Craig's just jumped in to get a shot for you guys. It's just a little one, it's so cute. Just see that little golden patch down there. Little leopard shark. Leopard sharks are one of the creatures that get studied here. So there's actually a catalogue of all the leopard sharks that have been documented at Ningaloo. So they can be identified by the little spot pattern, I think on their left hand side. So yeah, we'll send the shots that Craig gets into the researcher, which is Fin Focus, and she should be able to tell us the leopard shark's name if it's got one, or if it's not documented, then you get to name it. Pretty cool. Once this event is over, the way that the coral and Ningaloo in general recovers is not by the corals that have died coming back. Hopefully some of the ones that are currently bleached or fluorescing will be able to survive that. They can survive for a couple of weeks in that state, so for some of them, if the water cools back down, they can reabsorb their little algae and they can recover. But overall for the reef as a whole, it will recover by continuing on. In a couple of weeks time, the coral is due to spawn, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. I imagine some of them may not, or they may spawn early, or who knows. But when the corals that have survived spawn, that obviously allows for new coral to be created, and that will help to replenish the reef. So even some of these bommies that have died, although it's really sad, they will create a new surface that other coral will be able to connect and grow. So yeah, we'll have all these baby corals, and then as they grow, they'll be able to spawn. And so this is how the reef recovers, just by very slowly growing, reproducing, and hopefully not having too many more bleaching events in that time that is taking coral away, because the coral needs to build back up. The coral that is gone will stay gone, but it does make a surface that other coral can connect to. So hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll have lots of little baby corals floating around in the water, and hopefully they will be able to find homes amongst the reef and help to rebuild it. I think it's important to understand that the reason that this is happening is overall because of climate change, global warming. The ocean is getting warmer, and yes, this is a natural process. The climate has changed many times throughout the life of our planet, but the problem now is that we have sped up all of our emissions. We have sped up that process to a point where nature isn't having time to adapt. Nature is very, very resilient. It's amazing at adapting to change, but naturally these things happen very slowly most of the time, and so things have time to recover and adapt in between. So with coral bleaching, coral is a very, very slow growing animal, and so it takes a very, very long time to recover from damage. So the more often this happens, I mean, right now you can see probably half of the coral in the coral gardens here is bleached. So if that entire half died off, then the next time the coral reproduces, there's only half of the coral to try and replenish the whole reef. So it recovers very, very slowly, and the more of these events that happen, the more often that they happen. In some places in the world this is already happening annually, so we're very lucky at Ningaloo that this hasn't happened too much yet. But if this is to keep happening, then overall you just get less and less coral. Yes, there is nothing that we can do immediately to stop the current event that's happening. Nature just has to sort itself out here. All we can do is hope that the water cools down. But we can do something in the overall scheme of things. Anything that we can do to reduce our impact on the earth. Just educating yourself on the problem is a massive thing that you can do, and sharing that information with people you know. There's 8 billion people on the planet, so if 8 billion people make a little change in their day, that does add up. But all the way up into bigger changes, who we vote for, all of these things are super important. Putting pressure on companies that are putting pressure on the earth. This isn't something to believe in or not believe in anymore. It's happening right in front of us. In the past 3 weeks we've watched this little area that we love a lot die in some places. I learned about this almost 20 years ago in school, and it blows my mind that all this time later nothing has been done about it, and people still just go about their day. We still do everything the same, and there's still people that think it's not happening. We all need to be working together to do better, because this is so scary. I honestly hope that you feel as sad watching this as I feel to see it, because we need to change it. So even if you go away from this video and spend 10 minutes just learning about the ocean warming and maybe some things that you can do in your day to just start out changing little things, that would be amazing. So I hope that at least some of you guys will do that. But yeah, just learn, share with your friends, do whatever you can, and little changes move up to big changes. We're going to go for a little bit of a swim here. This spot is a little bit different because there's a lot of soft corals here, which is a little bit unique for the reef here. Most of the lagoon is hard corals, so it'll be interesting to see how the soft corals are going. For you guys that are on our Patreon, when I did the extra episode bringing the boat around the Cape, I mentioned this spot in that episode when we passed through, but it's a lot clearer today. There's obviously a lot of bleached coral. I think there was more sick, bleached or fluorescent coral there than there was healthy coral.
I'd agree with that. I took some shots just looking down and swimming over it all. And this has always been one of the best coral sites.
This is like my favourite snorkel site in the whole lagoon. It's pretty mind-blowing, like everywhere you look, it's just like, it's very beautiful if you had no idea what was going on. The coral is so bright, but...
I'm a bit lost for words. I'm going to show you guys a bommy over here that's probably 2,000 years old, do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like even the bommies that we look at on our tours, one of them is completely bleached and that one's been studied. And we know that that one is over 800 years old.
What is that doing?
That's the alarm for the bushfire.
Oh.
So to think that these bommies have been sitting here, building here for the last 800,000 years, and then just in 3 weeks, it's pretty much gone.
And we've covered a lot of ground today, and everywhere we've jumped in is the same story. So, yeah.
This coral isn't dead, so yeah, all we can do is hope that the water cools down.
In the next 2 months, we need cool water. Otherwise it will die.
It doesn't even have that long. I mean, this has got maybe a couple weeks. Those bommies, the very first bommies that I saw bleached, took about 2 weeks before they died. 3 weeks max. So.
Amid the haunting white corals and the chaos of change, there is still life, even new life emerging in the cracks. Coral, in all its complexity, can be hard to understand, especially when it's suffering yet still beautiful in its fight. Billions of polyps, architects of these structures built over thousands of years, are perishing in what may emerge as the most devastating coral bleaching event in Ningaloo's history. Bleaching now stretches along the entire Ningaloo coast, a powerful testament to nature's vulnerability. Non-renewable resources by their very nature will one day run out. Whether that day is distant or imminent, it is an inevitability. As a society, we can choose to foster a more sustainable future. Should we choose inaction, our loss will be far greater than the silent death of these ancient reefs. Even as Ningaloo battles adversity, it finds a way to persist, reminding us that the future is not set in stone. Our work is a call to action, a chance to choose hope, to choose life, and to build a future where these underwater wonders continue to thrive.
Alright crew, hope you enjoyed that slightly sad episode, but hope you learnt something.
And I hope you appreciate what you're witnessing, like the scale of it, the magnitude. It's been happening for 8 years in other reefs, or 10, 15, 20 years in other reefs around the world.
And this doesn't just impact us here, it impacts all of you as well. Because this is happening all over the world, and coral reefs are really, really important. So it might seem like just, oh, sad that it's not pretty anymore, but that's not the case, and it's very important.
We say this on tour all the time. Coral reefs only cover about 1% of the ocean's surface, the ocean's area, but it supports a quarter of all life in the sea. So just think about that. They're tiny little parts of the ocean, but they are massively biodiverse, densely populated areas.
Super important. So hopefully you guys feel like you learned something. Not even gonna bother with the whole like and subscribe and all that stuff today. If you guys can take one action from this video, then just let it be to go and spend even 10 minutes just doing a little bit of research and just learn about the issue, and even more so just go and learn about things that you can do. I mentioned a couple in this video already, but yeah, even if you guys can make some little changes, just go and learn about it, share it with your friends, and yeah, the more we know, the more we can do.
Yeah, and we're going to leave you guys today with a little letter we wrote for Ningaloo, from Ningaloo crew. We hope you share it. It's on our Instagram page. If you go there, you can share it out there.
Means a lot to us, so.
Yeah. Yep. All right, crew. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Dear Ningaloo,
we know you're hurting. Bleached bones of coral, once vibrant, now ghostly white. A stark contrast to those still untouched. But even in your pain, there's a story to tell. One of resilience, adaptation, and the raw beauty of life persevering. I've spent years chasing adventures to the far corners of the globe, but it's here, in my adult life, in my own backyard, that I find the most profound tales.
I knew from the moment I felt your magic that my path, through all its twists and turns, would always lead me here to you. Your waters, though scarred, still teem with life. Turtles gliding like old storytellers, fish darting about their daily hustle, and the occasional shadow of a reef shark patrolling its beat.
It's easy to mourn what's lost, to get caught up in the doom and gloom. But we've learned that true adventure is about perspective. It's about seeing the world not just for what it was, but for what it is and what it can be. Your hollow corals are not just remnants of a past vibrancy. They're the canvas upon which new life paints its future.
So we'll keep telling your story, not as a eulogy, but as a testament to your enduring spirit. We'll show others that even in hardship, there's wonder to be found. Using every avenue available to us, we will explain that you are so much more than just gazing at colourful corals. It's about understanding the intricate dance of an ecosystem in flux.
Ningaloo, together, will inspire people to see beyond the surface, to appreciate the tenacity of life, and to become stewards of your future, because your story isn't over, it's just entering a new chapter. And I, for one, am honoured to be part of it.
Yours an adventure, always.